So in 1991, I was diagnosed with cancer and given 6 months to live. I was 24 years old. As a consequence of a second surgery that I had to have immediately after the first because we didn't realize it was malignant cancer, I lost a lot of blood and I was in ICU for a period of time. That's when I experienced my first near-death experience. In 1991, the word cancer was very rarely heard of, and near-death experience was never heard of. So I had no knowledge about what this thing was. But what happened was I was laying in my bed, I was totally unconscious, and then an aspect of my awareness was absolutely up at the ceiling, looking down at my physical body. So I was perfectly aware that I was here and I was here. And it was so serene and so blissful. It was amazing. And then all of a sudden, I heard this big, booming male voice say, "It's not your time yet." And I was immediately put into my body again. Then the next day again, I flatlined, had the same experience. And again, this male voice came in and said, "It's not your time yet." So I came to eventually, and I could not even talk to my friends and family about it because I thought, well, they think I'm going to make it up, or it was a consequence of the drugs, but I knew what I had experienced. So I started buying every book I could to understand the nature of cancer, first of all, because I had this new battle to live. And then fast forward, in 2009, I was diagnosed with a lesion on my brain and had to have cranial surgery in January 2010. I went and saw a spiritual healer in Sydney, and I'd never been in the presence of a trance channeler before. And she warned me about what would happen, and this was my introduction to the quantum field. She sat there and she did this thing with her neck, and all of a sudden this Asian male voice came out of her body. And I was quite skeptical to start with, but then when the information came out that was so precise about the surgery I was about to have, I knew that there was something in this. And this voice guided me in terms of what treatments to accept or not. Then a second voice appeared and I recognized it immediately. It sent chills up my spine. It was the voice that spoke to me in 1991. And this voice said to me, "In 2 days' time, you will be given a choice, but you must decide." And I said, "I don't understand." And this voice went on to say, "In 2 days' time, you will decide whether you return to me because you belong to my choir or whether your work starts in earnest." And I sat there and I said, "Who are you?" And the voice paused and then said, "I am Archangel Gabriel." And from that day, that voice has been with me ever since. And that voice guides me every single day. As a consequence of the cranial surgery, there's significant scar tissue in my brain. And that scar tissue was causing significant neural pain down the right side of my body. So the doctors decided to start me on a ketamine treatment supervised in the hospital. The first time I had that, it was perfectly fine. It was very successful. My second ketamine treatment resulted in lack of properly supervised administration. As a consequence of that, my body went into toxic shock and I had a third near-death experience. But this time, what I witnessed, with my body completely unconscious, I saw a white torus field enter the room, and then I saw this beautiful golden grid coming up and out of my physical body. And I watched this grid and it had all these lines on it like a birth chart, but it wasn't round. And I looked at the light and I remember that my physical body's unconscious, but I'm completely awake in this other realm, witnessing this white light and this golden grid. And I'm watching this and I'm watching this light retrieve this grid from the body. And I said, "Stop, wait, am I dying here?" And I realized this was the soul coming out of the physical body, being returned to the light. And I said, "I haven't said goodbye yet." So an aspect of my awareness was able to leave the hospital room and go and find my father in the garden interstate, find my mother in the kitchen cooking, find my brother driving his car, find my sister in her house, find my 2 children on the Gold Coast, to say goodbye. And then my awareness was back in the room, and I said, okay, I'm ready now. However, this other voice arose and with a very assertive tone said, not so fast. It's not you that decides when you go, it is me. And I was scared. I hadn't heard this voice so clearly before. It was actually the voice of my body. And my body said, you've used me, you've abused me, you've ignored me, you've exhausted me. And it went on. And I could feel physical tears coming down my face because I felt ashamed. Everything this voice said was true. And this voice then said, it is I that will decide when you tap out, not you. And then I pleaded with the voice and said, please give me another chance. I'm so sorry. I promise I will treat you properly. I will treat you well. Here I am. So I now have a newfound honoring and respect and understanding of what this physical vessel is. I'd heard the words house of God and your body's a temple. I heard the words before, but didn't have an embodied understanding of what it meant. Now I understand. So after that near-death experience and coming home and given another chance at life, my world completely changed. All of a sudden, my identity was totally disoriented. My path in life was totally disoriented. I couldn't tell you if you asked the question, who are you and what you're here to do? Because I'd had a program that I was perfectly happily living out, and I was recognized for my work and everything was in place. And all of a sudden, none of that felt familiar or true. So it started a new quest of seeking and searching. For 4 consecutive evenings, I had this dream of a cave. And on the 4th evening, I woke up and I said, where is this cave? And I got given an answer straight away. I was told it was in Greece. And so the next morning, I got up and booked a ticket to go to Greece to find this cave. There was no questioning about it. There was no asking why I needed to go. I just knew the call was so deep, and it was a calling from my soul to go. And I went. So I arrived in the town where the cave was meant to be, and I started asking some of the locals, where's this cave? And they all said, there is no cave. I said, yes, there is. And they said, no, there's not. I insisted that there was. And they said, well, how do you know? And I said, because I dreamt it. And they're looking at rolling their eyes, right? Then I found this old lady sitting in the hotel lobby. I said, do you happen to know about a cave here? And she looked at me and she said, why do you want to know? And I told her about my dreams. And she immediately got up and gave me a hand-drawn map with a little goat trail up to the cave, which was about a 17-kilometre hike. I said I could do that. The next day I set off. I found that cave. And when I found that cave, every hair on my body stood up because it felt familiar. And I kept saying the words, I am here, I am here. But it wasn't me saying those words. When I entered the cave, I looked around. It was massive. It was bigger than I'd ever anticipated. I've never been into caves. I walked in this cave and it was inviting me to go into the very belly, right at the back of this cave. It was huge, it was dark, it was damp. So I climbed over all the rocks and eventually got right to the back of the cave. And when you were right at the back, you could not see the entrance. There was no light physically at the back of the cave. And all of a sudden I saw these rainbow colours everywhere, but they were colours so vivid that I had never seen before. So I put my hands in front of my eyes to see if it made any difference, whether I could see the colour or not. And it made no difference at all. It was just this multi-colours everywhere, so vivid. And I was like, what is that? And then I just discounted it. And I sat and decided to just be still and meditate. And as I sat there quiet, I could feel the cave just breathing with me, just literally expanding and contracting around me. And it was so serene. At no point during that hike or being in there by myself did I ever feel afraid. It was just amazing. And then after about an hour, I said out loud, I've brought you a gift. And I had brought a tiny amethyst with me to offer the cave. And then I heard a voice say, I want the green heart. And I tilted my head. I said, what? Because I thought I was making it up. And I heard it again, I want the green heart. Now, in my backpack, I had a large green opal crystal that I used for meditation. I thought about it. I said, no, that's my meditation crystal. You can't have that. And this voice again insisted, I want the green heart. So I put my torch on my phone. I took the green crystal out. I held it in my hands. And I could feel this tearing in my heart because it was like, this is something that belonged to me. And I had attachment to this thing. And I was questioning, these attachments that we have that then own us. And then in an instant, I just said, you can have it. And I went to put it down, and then my arm was directed to a position further down in the cave. And before I could set it down, it was literally taken out of my hand and went down into a crevice that even if I wanted to get it back, I could never reach it. Now I got scared because the sound of that crystal making its way down was quite loud. The echo was huge. And now I was aware that there was a presence in the cave. I sat down, my heart was pounding. I put my hands on my heart and I focused on just calming myself down. And I said out loud, I'm scared. And then this voice said, there is no need to fear. We are here. And I thought to myself, you know what? I don't even want to know who you are. I just don't want to be scared right now. So I put my hands on my chest and I was just focusing on calming myself down. And then when I stopped and I put my hands down on my knees, I held them up in a prone position. All of a sudden, every cell in my body started tingling. And then my hands went pins and needles times 1,000. It was full on. And I sat there and I said, I don't understand what's happening right now, but I'm just going to say thank you because then I'm not going to get scared. So I had my eyes closed and I just kept breathing and saying thank you, thank you. And it was like that for about 15 minutes. And then it just stopped. And I sat there quietly and I said, okay, so what was all that about? And the voice said, now your healing work begins. And I said, what do you mean? And the voice said, now you carry the frequency of the light of the heart of all there is. And I said, I think you've got the wrong person. I'm not a healer. I don't do that stuff. And the voice said, it's not you that will do the work. It is the light. Wherever you are called, you must take the light. The light will do the work. You just need to be. And I just cried and surrendered, and every hair on my body stood on end, knowing that I was hearing the truth of what I'm here for. And so I know my purpose, I know my path, totally unrecognizable to the life I had been living. Very difficult to talk about it. How do you describe I am a vessel for the light in the world? But that's what I am. And I have witnessed profound healings in the presence of the light. And it's an absolute honor to be of service to the light.